Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Mark Land. I'm standing here in this kind of large stage in this very large auditorium, and I'm wondering, why am I here in such a large venue? And I'm kind of wondering, maybe the scheduling team got a message. Mark will be speaking, or will be coming to Chicago to speak, and they reckon that they needed to schedule it in such a large room. But I'm a different Mark. Okay. So I'm the Director of Enterprise Applications in University College Dublin, Ireland. So I've travelled a long way to be here today. My role is, and the role of my team, the Enterprise Applications team, is to manage a whole range of applications across the university. So that covers our collaboration tools, our communication tools, our web tools, and then all the different admin systems that we use across the university. And obviously, key in that portfolio of applications is our new application, which is Salesforce. Before I go into that, I'm going to explain a little bit of what University College Dublin is. So I'll move on a slide here. So maybe some of you have been to Dublin. Maybe some of you have even been on campus in University College Dublin. But UCD is Ireland's largest university. We also class ourselves as the largest English-speaking university in the European Union. That's been helped greatly by our friends in the United Kingdom leaving the European Union and leaving that accolade to ourselves. So we have about 39,000 students on campus, about just over 4,000 faculty, and about 300,000 alumni. And we have a lovely campus just outside the core of the city centre, a very modern campus. Lots of space to actually build some really fabulous facilities, both in the kind of the academic teaching space, in the research space, but also some very good sporting facilities, etc., all on the one campus. So it's from my point of view, it's a great place to work. There's a very it's a lovely atmosphere in terms of when we're there on campus working. We regard ourselves very much as Ireland's global university because we're very globally focused in terms of what we do. So we have 5 global centres around the world, including a team here actually based in Chicago who are kind of tasked with recruiting American students to come and study in Dublin. And that happens actually to quite a large extent. About a third of our staff in Dublin are international, and we have today, back in Dublin, there's probably about 10,000 students who have travelled to Dublin to do their studies with us. We're very focused, I suppose, on building relationships with other universities. Many of the universities represented here may be actually formal partners of ours. We have about 500 formal partnership arrangements in areas like teaching, in areas like research, right across the globe. And we have 3 joint campuses with universities in China, where we have about 4,000 students in China working on these joint campuses. UCD itself, there is a very research-focused university. We have about €200 million of research income every year, and we've invested huge kind of money in terms of the development of kind of scientific, engineering, innovation facilities across the university. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a little kind of picture, and that is 2 researchers working in a clean room, developing a satellite that was actually launched a year ago into space, Ireland's first satellite, and it came out of UCD, and it was an occasion of kind of great excitement in UCD to actually have that satellite. So somewhere up there, there's a little piece of UCD floating around, or I hope it's still up there anyway. One of the things I like about UCD actually as well is it's a very diverse campus. We do an awful lot of different things. The size of the university is such that we do it. Down the bottom right-hand corner, we actually have a farm, not in the middle of the city centre, a little bit outside of Dublin, and we do a lot of research in the areas of kind of food and agriculture. That's just one of the kind of unique things about the university. We also do a lot of work in, I suppose, kind of in the environmental space and biodiversity. So we have facilities that help us in the research in that space. We have an architecture and engineering kind of faculty, and they focus on things like town planning and research research in that space. And then UCD as an organization is one of the keepers or the custodians of a lot of the Irish heritage and a lot of the, we have an archives function that hold a huge amount of the kind of the historic documents and so on of the nation as such, and UCD acts as the custodian in that place. So in my role, I'm out there talking with all sorts of customers right across the campus, talking technology to them, but mindful that they're actually, the fundamental disciplines that we're dealing with right across the university is such a diverse set of technology, or such a diverse range of kind of different, I suppose, disciplines and scholarship and activity like that. So, what are we going to talk about today? This is a Salesforce conference, so I'm going to explain why we in UCD chose Salesforce. We are one of the newbies, relatively speaking, in that we have Salesforce for about 18 months or so. I'm going to explain why we chose Salesforce. I'll then talk about the project that we've been doing over the last 18 months and where we started that Salesforce journey, and very much looking at student recruitment and admissions. It's probably where every university starts, or most universities starts when they start in the Salesforce journey. That's where we started, and I'll explain kind of some of the unique aspects of the way we approach that particular project. And then I'll talk a little bit into the future. What are our plans? What's our strategy? Where are we going in terms of a roadmap, etc., in relation to the deployment of Salesforce across the university? So, first up, why did we choose Salesforce? Now, before I answer that, anybody know who the bust is there, the picture? Any literary? It's not me. I haven't reached the stage yet where they will put a statue to me on campus. But that's actually James Joyce, okay? Ulysses, if you're into... James Joyce was actually an alumnus of UCD many, many years ago, about 100 years ago, as the case may be. So our library on campus is the James Joyce Library in his honor. If you haven't read Ulysses, I haven't, but if you haven't, maybe go get a copy and kind of... take it away for a very, very, very long weekend to kind of read your way through it. But back to Salesforce. Okay, why did we choose Salesforce? Well, let's do a little bit kind of a journey back in time. We started looking at the whole question of CRM and looking at kind of what we wanted in that space in early 2023. It's an interesting timeline because it actually was before Education Cloud. So when we started on the journey, Education Cloud didn't exist. The bids that we got in from Salesforce did not mention the word Education Cloud. And as we progressed through the evaluation of that bid, Education Cloud was born, okay? And I don't think I would be here standing on this particular stage if Education Cloud hadn't been born back then in early 2023. Probably would be standing on some other technology stage talking about a slightly different journey that we took at that point. Because it was fairly central, that creation of Education Cloud in early 2023 was fairly central to our decision. So why did we choose it? And we, as I'm sure in every university here, when you come to making a major decision like that, you bring together a group, an evaluation group that represents all the different kind of requirements and views across campus. So we brought together a kind of a group of business and IT and others just to kind of evaluate this. And these were the things that we thought were important. This isn't a slide actually incidentally that I created for today. This is a slide that we actually used with our university management team 18 months ago. So we talked with our university management team about wanting to do more in the marketing capability and how Salesforce could support us because of the level of advanced capability that Salesforce demonstrated to us during that selection exercise 18 months ago. 18 months ago, we were in the early days of AI. It's hard to believe that, but we were, in that we were only months into that AI journey. But even at that stage, we were noting that there were capabilities being demonstrated to us at that point. This was long before Agentforce, but they were being demonstrated to us at that stage about, in terms of what the capability of the product was in that space. So that was attractive to us, because some of the competitors hadn't quite heard of AI yet, you might say, at that point in the journey. We definitely liked the user interface. Our users loved the user interface. It was a far more modern, engaging user interface. Everybody here probably uses Salesforce. You understand that. You live that yourself in your particular institutions. And kind of what we found as well in that engagement with Salesforce and our implementation partner, we felt that there was a greater understanding of our requirements. I'm looking at some individuals here in the audience who were part of that original bid, Manny and Richard, who actually presented to us all those months ago, but we really felt a connection in terms of they understand our requirements. And why is that important? And I'm sure it's the case for everybody here. When you're engaged in implementing a new system, yes, you have requirements. We had requirements. We knew what our requirements were, but we wanted to work with somebody that would challenge us on those requirements and would maybe challenge us to think slightly differently about those requirements and maybe change some of those requirements, rather than just accepting blandly, this is what UCD wants. We wanted somebody who understood what universities, what higher education need, and could meet us to come up with what are the real kind of value in terms of the requirements that we would implement in the system going forward. And evidenced by the conference here today, it was really strong, or it demonstrated us a really strong experience right across the HE sector in terms of the use of Salesforce. So we did the usual thing, talked to other customers, etc., and learned from that experience. But today and this conference is a kind of an evidence of that experience actually being in existence. And then it brings me back to Education Cloud. So when we started the evaluation, we didn't have Education Cloud, and we were borderline as to whether we would have selected Salesforce. Education Cloud appeared, and that sealed the deal from our point of view, because it was essentially a package solution to something. We didn't want to custom build something. We didn't want to reinvent wheels. We wanted something that met us halfway, at least, with solutions that we could use out of the box. And that's what Education Cloud gave to us. So that was a key enabler. I'm from an IT point of view, so the other thing that really attracted us at that time was MuleSoft and its use as an integration hub. I know, talking with my colleagues on a business level in the university, they didn't know what I was talking about, and they probably still don't know what an integration hub is. And to be honest, they don't need to know what an integration hub is. But it was absolutely central for us from an IT perspective. That was a win that we were getting in the process. We were getting a piece of technology on the back of Salesforce that we could implement and use to great effect, not just with Salesforce, but then in other places across the university. So from a purely IT perspective, it helped kind of seal the deal for us. So we duly selected Salesforce in the summer of 2023, and then we headed into our first project. So that moves me on to the second thing I want to cover today is, where did we start here? So to understand where we started, I suppose we have to understand where we were coming from. So these are some of the things that were the reality of UCD 18 months ago in terms of that CRM journey. And maybe many of these things are things in your organization that you say, yeah, we either started in the same place or potentially we are still in that scenario. So, for example, we had multiple CRMs. We didn't have Salesforce, but some parts of the university had gone ahead and bought various things down through the years, and there were 8 different CRMs of various sorts in existence across the university. Needless to say, they weren't particularly well integrated. Some of them were legacy, etc., the usual stuff. There was a huge reliance on human inquiry handling and human effort. And so that's the case in every organization. In the absence of technology, people just get the job done and they put the hours in and they get the job done from that point of view. So that gave us, I suppose, an opportunity from a business point of view to say, well, how do we move from that very manual handling of, let's say, inquiries into something a little bit more modern? It also pointed to quite an extensive, I suppose, imbalance in different prospective students' experience. When you're relying on human experience, some people get super engagement. So they engage with somebody and they really feel that connection and they become kind of, they get converted in the process. But very often, the opposite happens as well. Very often, somebody's left waiting days, weeks, months, maybe never get a response to the university because the processes aren't consistent and are guaranteed to deliver a response. So we saw that that was the lived experience of loads of prospective students. Some were getting brilliant service, some were getting no service at all. So how did we actually balance that? Our marketing department really wanted to move from kind of very traditional marketing mechanisms to digital marketing. They had done some work in that space, but very much kind of point solutions. But how could they do something a little bit more? And that, I suppose, led us then to kind of understanding the broader market as well. So the broader market, and everybody knows this absolutely because it's the same market globally, it's a far more competitive recruitment landscape, year on year on year, be it in the global market or in the domestic market. It is more difficult to recruit students because all of our competitors, each of us individually, we're all competing with each other and we're doing better every year. So it's hard, you have to, standing still is not good enough. Standing still is moving backwards in reality. And then our customers, we know the Gen Z and so on discussions, our customers become more demanding. Will a customer wait, will a student wait for a few weeks to get a response back from a university when they have a choice of 10 other universities? Probably not. So, so from our point of view, there were lots of reasons why we needed to do something in this space. And that gave rise to our kind of project objectives. Okay, a lot of detail here, but I might start with the kind of the top right-hand one there. We wanted to streamline how things work. We wanted our inquiry and our application process, which are the basic backbones of any recruitment activity, to be streamlined. And we wanted to create capacity to recruit more. And I'll come back to that in a slightly later slide. But that creating capacity was really important. Other things we want to do, we want to enhance the reputation with our recruitment partners or agents. We do a lot of work, particularly in India, through agents. And we're competing not just for students, but we're competing for mindshare on the part of agents to ensure that we get the right students sent to us. We definitely want to improve our shop window. For a student, a global student that is coming to UCD more often than not, the first time they arrive in UCD will be when they're actually starting as a student. So their entire kind of buying decision is based on what they see online. So they'll kind of, be it website, be it reviews, be it the application process, that is their view of what UCD is. Doesn't matter how brilliant the campus is, that's a later part when they arrive, but the digital experience is so central to that buying decision. So we wanted to make sure that we were doing that as best we can. The next one is actually really important, recruit smarter. And any of us here who work in the kind of recruitment space possibly will resonate with this. Our objective here isn't actually to get more applicants and more applications, because the world is a very big place. If we put enough effort in, we could probably double or triple or whatever the number of applicants that we get. That just generates more work for us to assess all those applications and decide which ones we want. What we really want to do is recruit smarter, get better applications. Maybe not more, but better applications if we can. And then the ones that we do get and we invest the time in to evaluate, how do we convert the ones that we really want? So that we're not going after volume, but losing a very large number. We're getting the right applications in the door and converting the right ones into students sitting in classes a few months later. So how do we use our technology to do that smarter conversion was kind of a key thing. We're also very mindful of, as is the case probably for many universities around the world, student recruitment is our product. That's what we're selling. That drives our revenue in the university. That enables us to do everything. That enables us all to get paid in the university. So central to our objective was that whole revenue thing. And from an IT point of view, we're looking for a strategic platform, et cetera, as well. Central to doing this, I suppose, was bringing together the different parts of the university to collaborate on this particular project. Nothing particularly earth-shattering about this. We all do this every day in every project that we do. We're bringing together the business team. For us, that was about 4 full-time individuals that were assigned to the project, plus some other SMEs. Bring together an IT team, a very small team, just 2 individuals from full-time from IT, plus access to other SMEs. But then we had to choose an implementation partner to work with us on that. And that implementation partner provided the heavy lifting in terms of building the solution for us. Interestingly, we actually we started with Deloitte Digital, and they did our first part of the project, which was the application system, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we've actually now just switched partners, and we're in the second phase of this journey, which is looking at recruitment and marketing. We've switched to a different implementation partner, Creation Technologies. What's probably I want to spend most time on this particular slide in is actually the last column, the change management column, because up to this project, UCD had never had a full-time change manager on any project. Just wasn't something we did. Change management was a part-time activity that people did because they were kind of maybe a little bit good at it on a project. So it tended to not happen very consistently. So for this project, we recruited a professional change manager following a very kind of professional, I suppose, methodology, ProSci methodology. And we tried to use this project as a way of developing our maturity in the area of change management. And this was fundamentally, we understood that the challenge here was how to bring people with us. There's about 500 users of the system, how to bring those 500 future users of the system with us in that journey. And it was really important that we sat down at the start, figured out who were those stakeholders. How do we bring those stakeholders through that journey with us in a formal way? And then things like communication and training was really important. That particular team and that person was actually quite innovative in that space, particularly in some of the communication things. We introduced the concept of a Monday minute, and maybe others here use that concept, but a 1 minute video little snippet every Monday morning was circulated to a very wide number of stakeholders right through the project, just to tell them how's the project kind of progressing. It's actually, those are available on our website. If you kind of Google UCD CRM, you'll find the website and you'll see all those Monday minutes. And they were very non-technical, very easy to consume, but people liked getting every Monday morning that quick 1 minute snippet as to how the project was actually progressing. What did the application system look like? So this is where we started. We started with an application system because we needed to get that out of the way. So these are the main components in a kind of a block diagram sense. The core of it is the application system. Out of the box, Education Cloud, as close as we could make it. Then as part of that, we built 2 portals, an applicant portal and an agent portal that allow applicants to, I suppose, engage with their applications, and then agents to be able to submit applications on behalf of others and to see progress of those applications as they're being assessed. Both of those are standard Experience Cloud, essentially within Education Cloud. Outside at the moment, we have our course catalog. I know there's functionality within Education Cloud to do that, and that maybe it wasn't there when we did it, and that may be something that we ultimately do. And then we have MuleSoft, which kind of provides our integration into our existing systems. So our student information system being Banner. Like many organizations, we use Banner as our student information system. We have an identity management system, and we use Stripe as our payment provider because we do charge an application fee, and we charge a deposit to confirm an acceptance. So Stripe manages that. We've been long-running users of Tableau, so we've had Tableau for probably the best part of 10 years. So Tableau is part of that overall picture as well. What does it look like? Well, the answer is it actually looks just like Education Cloud because, okay, we built a portal, we did a little bit of graphics. It's looking a bit dark and dreary here on the screen for some reason. It looks a little bit better in person. But on the right-hand side is the experience, the application system experience. And that is standard Education Cloud. And the reason why we were kind of almost religious about saying we wanted to stick to Education Cloud because we want to be on the roadmap and the pathway as that product is developed. So even during the project, that experience on the right-hand side did actually change because there was a fairly fundamental release about, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months ago that actually we adopted as part of the implementation that changed that particular experience. So from our point of view, it deliberately looks and feels like a kind of a Salesforce product, even from a student point of view. Obviously, we provided branding and things right on top. I'm not sure how many people are in the hall today from an IT perspective, but I suppose I was, in terms of my role in the project, I was also thinking, well, what's in it for me, okay, as the person responsible in an IT sense for this. And there were a number of things that we wanted to get out of it, quite apart from delivering a really good recruitment experience. And the first thing, I suppose, is as we implemented Salesforce and MuleSoft, it definitely challenged how mature we were in what we call our DevOps processes. So I suppose the underlying processes that help us in our organization, in our IT organization, to run kind of projects in this space. And it would be kind of my experience, I suppose, is that we were not very mature. We're maybe level 1 or 2 out of on a scale of 5. And this project provided us with a mechanism to nudge that up a little bit. We're not at 5 yet. We're probably only at between 2 and 3, but we'll continue to use kind of to migrate towards best in class in that space. So what do we mean by some of those things? So the first one is around agile development. So we all know it and we understand the method, the theory, etc. In our case, I suppose the first real solid applications of this was during the Salesforce project. And what I found very interesting to see is that the terminology of agile, so backlogs, sprints, user stories, epics, all these suddenly started leaking out even into the business world. So it wasn't just IT people talking about the next sprint. The business side of the university were talking about sprints as well and talking about user stories. And it was a very interesting evolution that kind of we saw over the year of that project to see that change. And then within the IT team, we needed to become more mature in that as well. The middle one, I suppose, we're looking at deployment. So how do we, in a very robust and kind of risk-free way, manage the deployment of changes in the Salesforce environment, be they Salesforce releases, be they new functionality, be they new projects. Again, we were not experienced in that development, that journey, and that's a journey now that we've started again to mature a little bit more. Doesn't matter, the business side don't really see that happening. We're on that journey around maturing on that front. And then finally, one that we want to still do is the whole area of testing. I see years and years of endless testing. Every time we do an upgrade, every time there's a Salesforce release, how do we test it to make sure that even the existing functionality just works as it always did? And one of the things we really want to kind of get a grip on is automated testing, the holy grail of testing. We don't actually have to do testing. The computer, the AI, whatever will do it for us. So that's kind of one of my objectives over the next while, is to see how we can actually move from a lot of very good manual testing that was done and QA into a more automated process. The other key thing that I think I got out of the project was it moved the dial in relation to our integration strategy. So again, this is something that's kind of maybe internal to IT, but we really wanted to kind of become more mature in how we integrated systems. And I think we did that in 2 ways. The first way is actually with Salesforce itself. The nature of Salesforce, as we all know, is because it's built around solid single entities, it forces you to integrate both at a data and indeed at a process level. So there is only one case kind of object. There is only one person object. There is only one opportunity object. There is only one. So the difference that would otherwise exist in an organization, you're forced to say, well, how do you actually bring these concepts together so that a case is a case, an opportunity is an opportunity? There may be different types of opportunities, different types of cases, different types of people, but fundamentally, they're all managed in a consistent way. So in some ways, a lot of the heavy lifting on integration is actually done by just adopting the product itself without even having to look at anything more. But then equally, adopting MuleSoft from our perspective gave us an opportunity to join up how Salesforce would talk to lots of other systems. We were like in our world, it's Banner on our student information system, and we also use Workday on our financial side, not on our HR side yet, but on our financial side. So we've done a lot of integration between Workday, Banner, and Salesforce as being 3 major pillars of our future architecture, and using MuleSoft as a way of doing that. So, return on investment. So this is something that at our university management team, and indeed we have various kind of governing authority levels, they're asking us this question. We've given you a lot of money. What have you done with that money? And can you account for it? We're only halfway through the first year of operation, so this is kind of interim as opposed to a final return on investment. But this is the sort of thing that we're looking at here. So top line first is, despite what I said earlier about not chasing after an increase in application numbers, we did actually end up with a lot extra applications this year, 31% so far. We're about halfway through the year, extra year on year over last year. That is actually any project implementer's worst nightmare, because you're implementing something in parallel with the stress that a broader team is feeling because there's extra volume coming through that team. And in some ways, you're getting the blame for that extra volume. Okay, so just leaving that aside, yes, on the greater good of the university, we love to see the extra applications, but I would have actually preferred those to have come next year, not this year. Okay, but they arrived. We also, another key figure down there at the bottom is the 24% reduction in effort. Now, we actually went to the trouble of getting a relatively independently measured time and motion study, for want of a better word, old system versus new system. How long did it take you to process an application in the old system versus in the new system? So in the old system, we measured that at 20 minutes, 38 seconds on average in the old system, and in the new system, we measured it at 15 minutes and 24 seconds. So it led to a 24% reduction in like-for-like processing time. So what do you do with that 24%? Well, that 24% represents about 4,500 hours for our volume of application. So 4,500 hours is a lot of hours, actually, to have to, or to kind of to save. Now, we could have used that to drive efficiencies in various ways. In reality, this year, we used that saving to cope with the increase in applications that were coming in. So even though we got a 31% increase in applications, we didn't have to increase resourcing, because, in fact, there was a little bit of spare capacity created because of the new system. And possibly in years to come, that will improve, because there's a kind of a benefit of kind of learned experience. Year on year, people will get a little bit more familiar with the existing system. So it helped prove, on the right-hand side, our business case was, or sorry, on the left-hand side, our business case was basically premised on two things: that we can make a return of investment on the money that we spend on Salesforce through increased revenue. We will recruit more students, we will be able to generate extra revenue, it'll pay for Salesforce. That was kind of number one. And number two was, we can do more with our existing headcount. So as the university grows, the staff to support that doesn't need to grow at the same pace. And in an early stage, and recognizing that this is very early, we have kind of shown that is feasible in that first 6 months. We were able to support a substantial increase in volume with existing headcount. And we'll see as we progress through the year, hopefully that 31% increase in applications will turn into, well, a percentage increase in students in the university, which will drive new revenue next year. So what worked well on the project? The usual thing I noticed from the previous presentation, they ended up in much this thing: what worked well in every project, and we have a next slide, maybe what might we do better. So some of the things that worked well for us: good, strong business and IT partnership. To be fair, the team worked really, really well together. Very good engagement on the part of our business colleagues to really kind of get to grips and to get into the project and to understand what Salesforce could give to them. A very effective adoption of Education Cloud in terms of we were, I said the word religious earlier. We were religious about saying it has to be Education Cloud. And there were many, many times when people would propose alternatives, but we could change Education Cloud. We could do something different. And our answer in every case was, let's stick as much as we can to the product. To enable us to happen, one of the things that worked really well was kind of super access to the Salesforce product team. So to Corey and to Adam, probably they're not here today, I'll probably meet them later. But they, at key moments in the project, an hour with them on a Zoom call, they were able to inject a kind of a sense of direction to us as to where the project was going, which was absolutely invaluable to the project as we progressed through. I mentioned earlier, very good project comms, and kind of well done to the team that were looking at that, and effective training in that space. And the testing actually worked remarkably well, even though it was all manual. Broadly speaking, when we launched this, we've had 33,000 applications. You know, in the main, it worked. Students were able to apply. There was no issues with that. What would we have done differently? There are a few things we would have done differently with hindsight. There definitely were kind of some business exceptions that we didn't fully understand, what I call the non-happy paths. So we kind of did understand where maybe 30,000 of those 33,000 applications come from, but there's, as in every university, there's an awful lot of diversity, and some of that diversity we didn't pick up accurately, and they caused issues from that point of view. There were debates constantly as we were going through the project around, do we reorganize the recruitment function, and do we kind of reorganize around an organization change? That never happened, so we had to just keep pressing on from a project perspective. We were challenged on the Salesforce licensing process in that we have a lot of very unusual use cases in the university. Some people who have very, very, very occasional need to go in and maybe approve something in an application sense. How do we license them? That posed us some challenges. And then a very interesting one at the end. Should we have delayed the project for a year? I was kind of thinking about this earlier, and I would think of Salesforce as like a speeding train. So the product delivery team are charging off. The train is running down the track at quite a pace. It's a fast-moving train. And we're trying to jump on board to develop a new system based on that train. And that's what we were trying to do over the year. Would it have been better if we'd waited till the train stopped in a station and then we could have got on board much easier? But maybe we'll never get that luxury. Maybe there isn't actually a station up ahead that we could have stopped at. And would we have waited for the year? Probably not as a university. So we would have loved the luxury of being able to wait for some of the product developments that are still even coming at this point, but we had to make compromises on that front. So where are we going from here? Firstly, starting with our university strategy, we have a new university strategy. It's called Breaking Boundaries, a new university management team. It was published there just before Christmas. And there are 3 call-outs in that strategy that relate to CRM. So the first one is around, kind of pretty obvious one, around enhancing kind of service and supports to our staff and students across their life cycle. Partnership was a really important one from our point of view as well in our new university strategy, building those partnerships with all those institutions around the world, all those external organizations, all those policymakers, etc., that we want to engage with. And then finally, our strategy does call out that we need to recruit students to fund where we want to go as a university. So a very practical thing. So we were very, I suppose it was great that the university strategy is very supportive of what we want to do in a CRM context. We then turned that into a kind of a digital campus strategy, and some of the things we called out that are relevant from a CRM perspective that we want to try and achieve is kind of one way of doing things. So we kind of recruit in consistent ways. A shift to digital moves, let's say, some of our digital marketing, our marketing into the digital era. Much better analytics. I don't think there's any organization in the world that probably can't say that, but we definitely want much better analytics. Elevated experience, much better experience for everybody. So be it students, be it staff, be it prospective students. And then we want to kind of see how we can deploy things like AI and AI-enabled agents. And that led us to our roadmap. So this is our roadmap now, not Salesforce's roadmap. So this is where we want to take the product over the coming years. So top line there, we have the track that we're on, which is admissions and recruitment. The purple line, we're just about to start some work in relation to academic partnerships. So B2B, using Salesforce to manage our relationship with those 500 organizations across the organization or across the world that we work with, and then extend that into broader industry partners as well. So that's a track that we're progressing on. We have a project underway at the moment to use Salesforce with our service desk in finance, and we would hope that that will lead then to a broader adoption of basic Service Cloud, in effect, across the university. We're about to start a project with advancement, or alumni as we would refer to it in Ireland, and how we engage, again, using Salesforce in that space. And we want to fill in the gap. So we're doing recruitment, we're potentially doing advancement. We want to fill in the gap in terms of current students and current student experience, etc. And also on our roadmap is Agentforce, and we're about to commence a pilot using Agentforce in the recruitment process. I'm going to skip through the next 2 or 3 slides because we have 21 minutes to go, or 21 seconds to go. That worried you all when I said 21 minutes, didn't it? Because lunch is coming up. So I've skipped through those. And let me just go to the final takeaway points in the last few seconds here. So hopefully today you might have kind of understood, I suppose, the passion that we have around the alignment to Education Cloud and the future roadmap. That's really important from our perspective. It protects us from, I suppose, going down the custom build route and building technical debt is effectively what we're trying to avoid. The investment in change management to us paid off. I think we're only at an early stage of maturity in that front, but that's a journey that we will want to continue to develop as we go ahead with future Salesforce projects and lots of other of these types of projects. We're definitely working to build capacity in terms of our ability to support Salesforce and to roll out new projects. If I was to go back to that slide, the one thing that you might have noticed was lots of concurrent projects. Okay, bit of a challenge. So we need to build capacity there to deliver that range of things in quite a short time frame. And we'll do that by a combination of some internal resources, but very much focused on partnerships and bringing external implementation partners into the mix. I talked to you about, I suppose, the DevOps processes. What I want to see in terms of us using Salesforce as a vehicle to become a more effective IT organization and a more mature IT organization. And then we talked at the very end about kind of how we align to the university strategy, and really importantly, that we kind of show good stewardship for the investment that was made in terms of Salesforce from the start, so that we get the investment for future phases and for future projects that we want to do. So we're at 000 seconds here on the clock here in front of me, and thank you very much for your participation here today.